Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to this next round of TPS. This is round number 4 of Season 2. Welcome to the Circuit Paul Ricard in France, and we are going to be in for another fascinating race ahead of us, of course, with those 15 turns and 3.6 miles worth of track. The long straights all around the circuit with those 2 DRS zones are going to make for some intense racing with all of the cars stuck on equal footing. And of course, keep an eye out on the hot spots are going to be turn 8 and turn 9. Before we get into the action, we do of course need to go through the driver lineups ahead of us here in this TPS event. And the host, Paradox Sim Racing, will be hosting with Connor and Wextro tonight. Wextro stepping in, of course, with Connor, the regular. Matthew, the regular for FRA, will be sitting alongside Plaque for the Fury Racing Association. Viscral will be racing alongside with Tudy and Smokey for the first time, of course, after he changed over from WOR Esports. Teo Montoya, trusted pairing for RP1. They race again tonight, as are these two as well, after a very tumultuous British Grand Prix. Sam McCabe and Jam Pancakes will be racing alongside each other. Team Artemis will be racing with Sasha, WR Book unavailable tonight, so they'll be racing with just the one driver, with Lucas and Rev Caterpillar, the usual favourites for Novus. Rev Caterpillar fan club will be happy to hear that one, with Sam and Jack racing for Velox tonight. Continental will be racing with the likes of Archie and Bobbers for the Red Bull outfit, and then feeding on finally with Team Shazoo. LCR Leopard, the favourite, alongside Shazoo Venom for the first time this season. So it is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman. Thank you very much for being alongside me tonight for what is going to be, I think, a very, very interesting event ahead of us. We are going to be in for a very, very intense French Grand Prix. Of course, similar to that of Britain, the conditions can get a little bit temperamental, but fingers crossed, we're going to still be in for some really excellent racing.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me for another week. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, nice to be with you.
Given the go-ahead after Loveland. I believe he's still recovering from his illness, so first of all, get well soon to Loveland. Yeah, I think for French Grand Prix, obviously we moved from the home race of St George's from Great Britain last time to the home race of Roleplay 1. With Teo and Montoya. The French Union will be out in full force tonight. I'm very confident that they'll be in the chat rooting their drivers on. I think for French Grand Prix it can throw up a few curveballs, that's for sure, and I can't wait to see who snatches pole and, more importantly, who dominates the race.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what we're going to have ahead of us here, as we are just on board with the Alpine of Rev Caterpillar. The Rev Caterpillar fan club will be happy to see his name once again in the lights in TPS, as he just now heads his way through the infamous turn 8, turn 9 again, as we are expecting the majority of the hot spots of racing is going to be in and around this part of the track. And also, don't discredit this corner here as well, heading through this right-hander. This is where we may see people with the lower downforce set to really push the car to its limits, and then, you know, it's going to be one of those tracks now where we're going to be expecting and another situation where the midfield drivers could potentially be getting in and around the mix here. Now, obviously, your Team Artemis all the way through and through, but it's very, very tightly compact.
Yeah, it is at the moment. You know, you've just got to look for the opportunities and look for, you know, for upper hand wherever possible. Unfortunately, you know, dealing a bad hand with one driver tonight at Team Artemis, but, you know, we're a team that likes to run towards adversity and, you know, fight against any setbacks. So hopefully tonight can still prove to be a positive. I have full faith in Sasha, and I thought I would just point out it's actually VSR Finn racing in for Ferrari for Visceral Racing instead of VSR 2D. So I don't know where that changing occurred, but not too sure.
Yeah, very, very good call, actually, to spot that one. I missed that. It seems like there has been a bit of a last-minute change from Visceral, whether that was an emergency call or whether they will be taking an L and maybe a penalty for bringing in a driver last minute outside of the usual time that you would expect the lineups to be announced is another matter. And obviously, if you want to know all the latest information on that, I want you to keep an eye on our Twitter at TPS_F1, as we're just still following Rev Caterpillar at the moment. It's been a relatively good season so far for Rev Caterpillar, but he is coming off the back of a bit of a disappointing Tier 2 event, I believe, in WOR. I think it was a bit of a situation which ended up leading him to pole position in qualifying, but then by turn 5 at Belgium, he ended up spinning out and crashing due to an incident, I believe, with Piccolo. So he needs to sort of bounce back here. You know, you're in a different league, but when you're the same driver, you do tend to take any sort of form with you throughout every league that you're racing.
Yeah, that is correct. Obviously, Rev, he's a driver that thrives off confidence, and you know, he is arguably his own biggest fan and his biggest critic. Obviously, Novus at the moment in the team standings, P4, which some might say are punching above their weight, but I think for opening 3 rounds and coming into the 4th round tonight, Novus are going to look to really capitalise on their strong start. Obviously P7 and P9 at the moment with Lucas and Rev, and obviously Rev being P6 in for individual drivers standings, which is obviously a nice little personal highlight for him. Every driver does thrive off confidence, of course, and if his head is down and, you know, he's wanting to bounce back after his WR showing, then tonight is the perfect opportunity to prove to the viewers that, you know, he's a driver to be feared.
You're talking as well about the situations that the drivers may face to try and put themselves in, you know, the light of, we are going to be a force to reckon with. The team we're following at the moment, Jam Pancakes Racing for St. George Esports, British Grand Prix qualifying comes along. They absolutely fly and lock out the second row and pierce a serious challenge amongst the viewers. And before we even get anywhere near turn 1, an incident occurs which sees both of the drivers fall towards the back. St. George took it with a very, very good head. I don't know if you see it on Twitter. Yeah. Obviously, they don't take themselves or the team too seriously. They just want to have fun. But it's still going to knock their confidence, surely, when you come into this race and think, we've got the pace, but we didn't show for it last time. Can we now push back and show what we can do at France? That's the question here as Jam Pancakes comes across the line, puts himself in P7. The pace is there. It's just whether that they can continue that with the form that they take away from Britain, which is not very good one.
Yeah, I think obviously all eyes would have been towards the incident before turn 1, even between McCabe, Sam, Jam Pancakes and FRA Matthews, currently on provisional pole in Q1. Nearly 3 attempts clear of the field, might I add, for Matthew. But I think for St. George's, it is that, you know, I don't want to say unserious mentality, because I know once they are out on track, they want wins, they want podiums in order to represent St. George and, you know, King Charles III, obviously. They're very patriotic, our St. George's. And, you know, their main goal is to, you know, at the end of the day, it's to be as high in the standings as possible for them. They suffered, obviously, quite a large setback the other day, last Thursday, but today will be, yet again, another opportunity for them to bounce back.
On board with Teo at the moment for role play 1. Now, he's going to come back off the back of, shall we say, a bit of a tumultuous time at the British Grand Prix last week. He ended up, what's the best way to describe it? He went for a little bit of a dive that didn't particularly work very well with the conditions out there, and he put it into the side of one of the VSR drivers. And again, we're not going to accuse anyone of anything or anything like that, but it was a very aggressive move. Now, RP1 have been very good so far this season. They've been showing some muscle, but have made a few mistakes here and there. So if you were in Roleplay 1's shoes here, you've got the drivers that have got the pace. Surely the opportunity here is, don't take any risks. Let's get our name on the map.
Yeah, obviously, Roleplay 1, they caught quite a lot of people's eyes qualifying for this tournament, let alone, you know, for performances that they have put in at the moment. As, yeah, I think for Roleplay 1, they've made a couple of good signings as well during the tournament. I believe they've signed Noctis, who has previous experience with WR and Team Shazoo. So, you know, those drivers with top team pedigree are just going to be so useful to Roleplay 1 for the next few races. Obviously, after the transfer window comes in during the break week, and I think for Roleplay 1, this is all about getting the name on the map. Their home race today, obviously, they'll probably be feeling a little bit of pressure, but I think they have what it takes. They have the bottle, because we've seen it previously. We've seen it in past races that they can put in one hell of a performance.
They absolutely can. It's all about whether they can continue on with the form that they took, let's say, from I think Jeddah was actually one of the more standout performances from RP1. So looking forward to see what they could do at a track that's similar in its sort of approach with the long straights but limited sort of corners. In this scenario, I say limited corners, there's about a million at Jeddah, but you get the point. Nothing that's going to be too excessive on the driver or the car. So we've got 3 minutes left in Q1. Obviously, those that are in the bottom 4 will be knocked out of Q1. Velox was at the bottom, but Sam has just come across the line to go now into P9. That knocks Sasha Andre for AEM down into the bottom 4, and he's currently on a lap as well as it stands. Rev Caterpillar on the brink as well, and it's very close actually in that little battle as well, at 0.848, 0.863. But so far at the moment, it is FRA leading the way, both drivers into the 1 minute 30.0s, and Q1 in overcast conditions, so already flexing a little bit of pace at the moment are FRA. And also a very quick conversation as well about what's happening with PSR. Connor and Wexrow, the championship leaders and the hosts of this tournament, really down the order at the moment. One in the dropout zone and one very close.
Yeah, obviously PSR Wexrow for main man, obviously for team owner of Paradox Sim Racing, filling in tonight as an emergency transfer, just to make sure that they have 2 drivers on the grid. It's PSR Connor, his teammate, goes into P4, so I think that squashes any doubts of him being knocked out. But yeah, with Wexrow, he's obviously he's a very talented driver, don't get me wrong, but he just he isn't seen much. Like he isn't out there a lot these days. I think he prefers the laid back approach of, just owning the team, letting the drivers that he's appointed take the spotlight. But tonight is time for him to hit the lights and show us what PSR Wexrow is all about. And I personally can't wait to see him race. And I know that's probably him feeling that I've put a little bit of a commentator's curse on him. God forgive me if I have, but I'm very entertained to see what Wexrow does tonight, because I've seen him race a couple times before, and he has raced well. To be fair to him, he does show what PSR is all about in terms of the pace standard, and yeah, hopefully he can survive Q1 at least and show flex his muscles a bit more into Q2 if he gets through.
Just following on board at the moment with the Continental Racing team. Now, we haven't really seen a lot of them because they've not really been in the mix, but CRT Archie at the moment at the back in 18th at the moment, but he had a nice little tow from his teammate Bobbers, who is probably through to Q2, to be honest with you, up in 8th at the moment as it stands. But Archie's going to want to try and push as hard as he can now with the DRS open. He'll push towards the line, will the Red Bull, and he'll want to try and get himself, if he can, anywhere near the top 15, and he isn't. He's in 15th place, so he's in there, but he is on the brink, and that is not really the scenario that CRT really want to be in. They'll have one driver through as it stands, but they've got one driver in PSR Wexrow who's actually still in the pits. In fact, he's come into the pits, and I think that actually is one driver from the Paradox Sim Racing team knocked out of Q1. Wexrow will not be progressing. Rev Caterpillar will be looking to get something in for the Alpine team. Sasha is in the pits as well, and I believe AEM will be out of the running as well. Teo is on a lap at the moment, and he is well down. He's 5 seconds down apparently in the first sector according to my screen, and if that is the case, RP1 are going to be losing a driver as well in Teo. So Archie on the brink might sneak in, but it's all about Rev Caterpillar, who has invalidated, so Rev is also out of qualifying as well. So it's all about whether Teo has managed to improve in it. He apparently is actually a 10th and a half up in the second, so maybe that 5 seconds is not the case for the RP1 driver. So it's all about whether Teo is going to knock out one of the CRT drivers as Lucas comes across the line for Novus up to 9th place. So one driver for Novus certainly in, one driver in Rev Caterpillar is out. Teo around the 3rd sector, and the rain is beginning to fall on the track.
Yeah, that is something that I was just about to mention. The rain is starting to fall. The track will get greasier and greasier. This is now or never for Teo to get through into Q2. Obviously unfortunate for Wexrow, Red and Sasha at the moment, but CRT Archie is going to be biting his fingernails because he's on the brink here. Let's see what Teo can do. Coming round the final corner now. Nice and tight turning line onto power, nice and early. In DRS is now activated. Teo comes to the line now and he stays P19, so CRT Archie and Jam Pancakes will be faking their lucky stars as, that leaves Taylor at the back of the grid for tonight's race.
It certainly does. So one of the RP1 drivers who have been really rapid throughout this race and at their home Grand Prix will be starting at the back. Their teammate, on the other hand, up in third place, but beaten soundly as well by the two FRA drivers. Plaquet coming out of the blocks, immediately taking the first session with Matthew in second, Finn in fourth with Connor in fifth, Leopard is in sixth, Smokey in seventh, Jack in eighth, and Lucas in ninth with Venom in 10th. And those that still managed to sneak through, Bobbert, Sam McCabe, and Sam McCabe, Jam Pancakes and CRT Archie, both CRT drivers through to Q2. They'll be happy with that one, but PSR lose one of their drivers in Q1 with Rev Caterpillar. Sasha, the sole driver for AEM, also knocked out alongside, of course, Teo on his home Grand Prix. So we head through to Q2 now. Now the rain is beginning to fall, and I'm wondering if we're going to have a mass rush of people leaving to get out on the track before the rain falls too hard. Is these conditions suitable for dry? I am not so sure. If it indeed it is, we're going to expect a mass exodus of people leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say I wouldn't be too surprised if it was broad daylight going into Q2, but it isn't. There is rain falling, and yeah, I can see for Mercedes and for Ferrari and for Red Bull pit crews trying to get their drivers out as soon as possible. So yeah, everyone is just going to try get out as soon as possible on those soft compounded tyres. They'll have one possible run until the rain becomes too heavy. And it may even become too heavy to even go out on a lap on the softs. Obviously, the two Hasses of St George, they're obviously very lucky with the fact that they are closest to the pit exit. DRS has just been disabled as they've all come out of the pits. So that is often the indication to the drivers that it is too greasy to run slick tyres, and for intermediates and if the rain gets any heavier, for wets would be required here at the Circuit Paul Ricard. So I don't know whether they've...
It's opportunity knocks here though, Brett, for the two Haas drivers. St George Esports immediately left the pit lane. Now they, as we said, and as we expected, a mass exodus of drivers have all now decided to leave. And Jam Pancakes and Sam McCabe will be the first two drivers to get themselves out on the track and set a lap time on slick tyres. So they will be the quickest of those on the dries. It's just whether the intermediates are going to be the faster tyre come the end of the lap. So keep an eye out on the first few drivers, certainly. You've got to discredit as well the Alpha Tauri as well of Montoya. And then you've also got one of the VSR drivers as well. I believe that one is Finn. But curiously, one of the Velox drivers, Sam, has elected to stay in. And now he's jumped over to a set of intermediate tyres. So he believes there's going to be not enough time for these soft tyres to ever be suitable for a lap here. So we'll see how many drivers decide to evade this exodus and decide to come straight back into the pits, and who's going to stay out. One of those drivers staying out, certainly, it is Jam Pancakes. He is going to go out there, and he is going to have a go, but the rain is really, really starting to fall now.
Yeah, it's coming down in absolute buckets of rain. You can tell from the track, if you go onto the TV pod camera that I've currently got, but yeah, it is becoming more and more soggy for track at the moment. So this has more, I'd argue and say this has more pressure than your final Q3 run, because this is the only time where you're going to have that soft tyre advantage in comparison to when the intermediates will eventually kick in on this track. As McCabe Sam coming up, taking it very cautiously, as you would expect, hoping that the car doesn't spin out from behind you on your rear. And obviously it's quite helpful. No DRS obviously at the moment, so down this straight you will not have any speed advantage with the rear wing opening. So yeah, I'm not too sure whether drivers would have had much experience in terms of going from a mixed, I guess a mixed track, I guess you can say, because it's for balance between slick and wet tyres. So I think this is something new for everyone, but with the state of F1 at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a common experience for the drivers, I can't lie.
Well, the majority of the drivers have all decided they're going to go out. Sam has elected in the end to go to a set of soft tyres, so he's now coming out on an outlap on a set of soft tyres that absolutely are not going to work here. Let's see then what Jam Pancakes initially sets. He'll be the first driver to set, and he is locking up left, right and centre. Whilst you were talking, he just did not look comfortable, and he revs all the way down the line. It will be his teammate who will come across the line next. It will be Sam McCabe setting a lap time straight after Jam Pancakes, and it will be faster by 0.06 of a second. Montoya comes across the line, but Smokey will go faster, as will Leopard. So those people who managed to stay close to the Hassers are not going to lose too much time here, but those who have spent too much time on their laps may begin to struggle. Both CRT drivers, 8th and 9th respectively. Smokey fastest, PSR Connor goes second, with Jack coming across the line well down the field for Velox, and Sam, the sole driver who's elected to go out a lot later than everyone else, is in serious trouble here, and Velox actually are in serious trouble, you'd have to say. Shazoo are in trouble as well with Venom, and Montoya for RP1 also in trouble, and VSR, they're in trouble as well. Look, all these drivers all leaving the track limits here. They are struggling out there, and I have a feeling this Q2 session may be over already, and it's certainly well and truly over for Velox.
Yeah, it's over before it started for Velox, really, which is such a shame for them, obviously. They are a very strong team. Don't let the standings discredit them. I know they're P9 at the moment, but Sam and Jack are a very formidable duo to be reckoned with. And I know 14th and 15th isn't the most appealing to start a race with, but I'm sure they can use... for midfield, I guess, for lower midfield to their advantage, as Rev Caterpillar is their possession. I wonder if he's off to go do a potential race run or two before the actual race starts for him. So, yeah, I think it's very unfortunate for the drivers that are from 11th to 15th at the moment, as this was their opportunity to just get one flying lap in, and it hasn't worked. I mean, we will obviously see what Sam can do. Let's not, write him off straight away, but the track does not look suitable for dry tyres. He's keeping it on the track, and he hasn't span at the moment, which is a credit to his talent, but I'm not sure whether this talent alone will be able to get him into Q3.
You say the words, let's not discredit him here, but I'm sorry, but Sam left far too late on these set of soft tyres, and as much as I respect him as a driver, he's a cracking driver, he got to this league with full intentions to be one of the competitive drivers. He's at the back by well over 3 seconds, and that is his and Velox's sort of Q2 session over, I'm sorry to say, for the Alfa Romeo outfit. It was a valiant effort from Jack, but Jack is just not quick enough at the moment versus the rest of those people around the field, and you'd have to say, ladies and gentlemen, those who don't identify, we have 8.5 minutes for you guys to go and get a cup of tea and relax here, because I have a feeling what we're going to be witnessing now is going to be, as you rightfully say, the opportunity for those drivers to just get out on a set of intermediates now and do a little bit of race strategy and race runs here, just to get a feeling for the track, understand the track, and if, of course, rain does fall in the race, this is a good opportunity for those who want to give it a go. The only concern, of course, is those who are in the top who decide, you know what, I'm going to go out for a run. If they make a mistake and put it in a wall and they're out of qualifying as a result of it, they're going to be kicking themselves because, of course, they can't qualify for Q3.
Yeah, obviously, going back to Sam, it was a tactical risk from him, and it just hasn't paid off this evening, which is unfortunate for him. But I think, with 7 minutes 40 left of the session, I don't think we're going to be seeing many cars out on track. Maybe some cars will grace us with some laps on the intermediates, but whether it's worth it to burn up a set of tyres when they could be crucial for Q3 it would intrigue me, as I believe, VSR Finn. He's gone out on for softs. He's not gone out on for softs. He's gone out on for intermediates. So I think Finn is going to try and get into Q3 on for intermediates. If he does this, I want to know what speed grips he is using, because unfortunately, I love Finn as well. He is a cracking driver, as are all of the 19 that are racing tonight. Don't get me wrong, but if you can get into Q3 on your inters, I'd be gobsmacked.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a call here, and I'm wondering whether the fish, well within water as well, according to his helmet, is going to just sort of get a feel for the track on the intermediate conditions. Will the Ferrari, of course, in the special livery for the foreseeable, will now head down the straight, as both VSR drivers now are actually heading their way around the circuit to get a lap in. Got opportunity here, actually, to have a quick look in the chat to see what is happening here, and we've got other people hopping into the chat, including on the likes of WOR themselves, just having a little look in the little old TPS, as Oliver Loveland has pointed out in the chat as well. Axe in the chat as well. Good evening to yourself. Kirby also in there. Rev Caterpillar fan club being led, of course, by Kirby and Dill in the chat as well. And it will be a fascinating event ahead of us if the rain has got anything to go by here, because we are going to be watching none other than VSR Finn as he will be lining his way around the circuit. It is all about whether the VSR driver will sort of try and just sort of understand the circuit more or less. Now, you have to say, it's not going to be one that he's going to be keeping a firm eye on, you'd have to say, for a potential sneak into Q3, but Finn, as you say, they're not getting through any faster. It's all about whether Finn will just sort of adapt his strategy now, understand the circuit, understand exactly how he wants to race in the race ahead of him. This is an opportunity to see what's available, essentially.
Well, he has already invalidated, and maybe this is, I mean, something that we don't know is whether it's a dry or a wet race. So maybe Finn is actually just going out there, getting a feel for the track as he catches it. No, he's span.
Yeah,
he's span, and that's his front left end plate gone. Unfortunately, for Finn. So I don't do if buts and maybes. I do absolutes, and I'm absolutely sure that Finn will not be progressing into Q3.
No,
unfortunately for him,
he's trying, isn't he? And you know what? In fairness, it's not, like I said, it's still an opportunity for those drivers to have a go here. Let's have a quick look as well around the rest of the field and see how the rest of the teams are doing. So, congratulations to CRT. They're through to Q3 as a pair, I believe, for the first time this season. Yeah. So really good effort from Continental Racing. NVR will be happy that Lucas has managed to get through to Q3. Both of the St. George drivers are through. Both of the FRA drivers are through, but not as fastest. Leopard is also through for Shazoo, while one of their drivers is out in Venom. Connor is also through for PSR. He's retired immediately and said, I'm done, so I don't really blame him for that one. And Smokey, though, leading the way for VSR, not WOR as the gamer tag would suggest. He was racing for WOR Esports, but of course, after WOR Esports disbanded a lot of their drivers, shall we say, over a very short period of time, Smokey decided to join VSR. And what a signing as well, actually, but as VSR is looking like to be proved here.
Yeah, VSR, they have picked up quite a lot of the ex-WR drivers. They've picked up, obviously, Smokey. They've picked up Wilson, M Racer, just three names that come up off the top of my head. And if I'm drivers like Finn, Akos, 2D, I'd be a bit nervous as to whether my place in TPS will be held after the break week, just adding a little bit of drama to the situation. Obviously, after France, we will be taking a week's break and then coming back on for week commencing, I'm going to guess, just a random date in October, because I haven't actually looked yet. That's very poor managerial stuff from me. But I think for VSR, they've obviously had so much success on PC, PS and Xbox back in the day, and they did come back onto Xbox under Loveland and Freshkey, for former NRX managers and owners, and they brought in Findeum, they brought in Jack, formerly known as Chili, and they were two very good signings, but they were just at that stage where there were no tournaments for them to race in, and with TPS coming along now, obviously Loveland and Fresh are both in Paradox Sim Racing, so congratulations to them. But VSR, they have gone through the managers. They obviously have Ben Hill as well, who brought in the likes of Judy and Finn and Akos, and all them sorts of drivers that we've grown to love in the first three races. But now we have Clenzo and Alpha in, who are a former WR pet managerial experience, and I'm sure that the likes of Smokey, M Racer, Wilson, even Clenzo potentially might race. A new VSR, we should say.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a look and see what's happening around the field as we sort of reflect upon that one here. And I'm just having a quick look as well. And the rain is starting to lighten up a little bit, I have to say. I'm just keeping a monitor on the conditions. It is starting to brighten up a little bit out there, but the rain is falling but ever so slightly. So it may take a little bit of time to shift the rain. There's definitely no dry line appearing anytime soon. As we're just following McCabe's sound, St. George Esports has been followed at the moment by WOR. WOR themselves is in the chat saying we're supporting St George. Says WOR, as them and Ollie are having a little bit of banter in the chat as well, actually. If you are watching live, definitely worth popping in the chat and having a conversation, and let's discuss, what this event is essentially bringing, because we've now got a really intense sort of potential Q3 event coming up. We've got a lot of midfield drivers again getting in the mix, and that is something that is just really, really, really fantastic to see, because it really brings and really shows how close the midfield teams are essentially fighting out at the moment. Because, you've got FRA and you've got PSR leading the front two, but from third down to maybe ninth at the moment, there may only be something like 15 to 20 points separating the those teams at the moment. We're only in the fourth round, but with that sort of level of complexity put into the mix, really close competition happening here. As we just follow Sam McCabe, he will come across the line to improve his intermediary lap time at the moment. I'm just having a look to see what his split was, and he was actually a 10th up on his intermediate lap time on that occasion, so finding a little bit of pace out there at the moment.
As you said, for likes of third down to ninth, obviously in for intermediate conditions, into the the sort of soft intermediate conditions, as this session has finally ended. These drivers are just on some just precautionary laps, I guess. Not ready for correct word to use, but just some laps to enjoy the weather somewhat. We didn't have rain in Britain to my recollection, so when rain is not provided where normally the home of rain is, we'll bring it to France instead during qualifying, as obviously I have previously just mentioned, end of Q2 now, depending on what the weather is like in Q3. Obviously, you mentioned earlier that it does seem to be lighting up the rain. Less rain about in the air, so maybe the standing water could potentially get cleared by the end of Q3, obviously a 12-minute session. And will there be a driver that is bold enough to go on to the soft tyres if it is looking between a crossover point, is my question to you.
Rev Caterpillar, he did that in Tier 2 literally this week, but he's not here. He was knocked out in Q1, and I think he would have been absolutely frothing at the mouth at this potential opportunity. He took that opportunity and ran away with it, and I think Novus would be kicking themselves that they didn't manage to get him through to Q3 if indeed we end up having a crossover point towards the end of Q3. I just having a very quick look at the moment at the rest of those drivers coming across the line. Jam Pancakes will be the last person to come across the line. LP1 Montoya doing a few donuts, shall we say, towards the end of that qualifying session before he crossed the start-finishing line. Spinning around, doing everything. It came live, and then immediately his car started behaving. So I'm wondering if RP1 have just given him the nudge to say, you've just been caught live doing that, and you might have got us into trouble. We'll have to see what the stewards make of that one later down the line. Either way, WR Smokey is the fastest in that session of those that were on the soft tyre, of course, when the rain started falling. So the times are obviously well down on what we'd expect. Connor in second with Leopard in third, Placky in fourth, Matthew in fifth, with FRA dropping a couple of positions as a result of that. Sam McCabe in sixth with Pancakes in seventh, Boberts in eighth with Lucas in ninth, and Archie in 10th, and that'll be the first double appearance into Q3 for Continental Racing, so good effort from them. VSR have lost one of their drivers, unfortunately, in Finn. Montoya is out on his home debut, with Venom in 13th for Shazoo in a shock out, and the two Velox drivers, Jack and Sam, also out of Q2. Let's go then through to Q3, and the first call is all about what is going to happen as regards to the track conditions. If indeed it is drier, and it is going to be a scenario where it's going to be dry, you'd say FRA are going to be in the mix, but that to me looks like it's got a bit heavy again, and we are definitely not going to be on soft tyres. We're going to be on intermediates. It's all about who has A, prepared for this part of the qualifying session, and B, who has got the strategy right as regards to their setup to get that car as fast as it possibly can around the track in these conditions. First immediate calls to my head is looking to me like WR Smokey, the sole VSR driver, could be in that mix. Placky and Matthew are also in that mix as well, and obviously don't ever discredit the likes of St George.
I was going to mention as a hypothetical, if it had dried up a little bit, would the two driver advantage potentially be an advantage to the teams like FRA and St George's and Continental Racing Team. But obviously it is where, so you're not going to get much of a tow down these soggy straights, I'm going to call them. So yeah, it is nice to have both drivers into Q3. I know Paradox, Novus, they would obviously want 2 drivers into Q3, but it is just for one representing them in the final stage of qualifying tonight, as well as VSR. But I think for shouts for pole, obviously WR, now VSR Smokey, proved his pace quite well in WR Tier 1, I am led to believe. The other night I caught a few glimpses of it, but in terms of his pace, I believe he is for one to watch for pole position, unless the likes of PSR Connor can, pressure him and don't discredit for FRA drivers.
If you are just tuning in, good evening, wherever you are across the world. It is myself, Jota, and Brett Norman tuning yourself in once again for this PSR event. Welcome aboard to the French Grand Prix. And first things that come to our head here is about that question for pole position. Ollie in the chat is immediately saying PSR Connor's got pole here. That is a solid question of who is going to be on for pole. People are suggesting PSR are going to be bouncing back after what has been a very tumultuous performance in this qualifying session. One knocked out very early on. So Connor's got a bit of muscle and got to flex a little bit of muscle here if he wants to try and get the team into a position where they could say, yeah, we made a mistake, but we're not going to make a mistake with this driver. And of course, never discredit any of the drivers out on the field, including those of St. George, because they are incredibly quick and they are going to want revenge basically for what had occurred at the British Grand Prix. As we just follow PSR Connor as he starts his lap around the French Grand Prix. Brett, take us on a lap around here.
Alright, I will try to take you on a lap to the best of my ability. So we come into Verrières, turns 1 and 2 here. A nice little sort of extended chicane, I like to call it. And then we'll come into turn 3, which is called Hotel Section, I'm led to believe from my nice little track map that I do have here, just as a little, in case I am called upon to do a hot lap here. So now he will turn left onto the beautiful long Mistral straight, where obviously you do have the chicane splitting for 2 parts of the straight, as the McLaren just gets out the way there, abandoning a lap. As PSR Connor takes the chicane, can he take the inside very nicely? He does, takes a little bit of curb, and obviously want to be far left as possible on the exit onto the second part of the Mistral straight now, coming into the long right-hander of turn 10, coming into 11 now. Got to pick your braking point very specifically, especially in the way, hoping that you don't spin out when you put down the power on the exit of 11 into turn 12. Now takes a wide line on entry, looks to hug the apex on exit, and on the right hand side of the track, gonna hug it as much as possible into the left hander of turn 14, coming into 15 now, and he'll try and put the foot to the floor. Hope that he doesn't spin out. He doesn't. Very good throttle application from PSR Connor. Can he beat Jam Pancakes and go on provisional pole? No, he cannot, but he does split the 2 St George's Esports drivers.
So, at the moment, the St. George Esports drivers are hoping to try and at least lock out the second row once again, try and match their performance at the British Grand Prix. So far, they've got one driver on pole, 139.8 at the moment for Jam Pancakes, but make that now a second row appearance with Leopard coming across the line for Shazoo, the sole Shazoo driver as well, of course, after Venom getting knocked out in Q2. Leopard goes fastest with that 139.4, but there are drivers all around the field at the moment looking to try and improve their laps. Lucas certainly not going to be improving, nor are any of the Continental drivers, but Matthew is looking to try and get on the board, and he's just now heading through the first sector, and he's trying to get a tow from his teammate down the straight, but he's definitely weaving that steering wheel left and right, trying to find grip somewhere, and to be fair, he tried to do the best he can on that scenario, but you've got to argue he was definitely struggling with the grip on the rear, so the car clearly been set up for the wet conditions. Double lockup going into the corner, but the car was able to turn somehow as he now heads through turn 8, turn 9 into turn 10 as the McLaren of Plackey gave him a little bit of tow, and FRA Plackey really down the field in respect of those drivers around him with that 40.1. Matthew will be hoping to try and set something on the board. His second sector lap time was considered to be somewhere close to Connor. So he's going to be in and around P3, P4 as it stands if he stays on with this little bit of pressure as he now heads through this corner and a bit of a wider entry, I think, just so then he can get the better exit for certain. Again, that car is just wanting to spit him out. That McLaren is not looking very stable, you'd have to say, as he then heads through into that final corner where, of course, he's going to now keep it planted if he can, as the revs are absolutely going through the roof for some reason. As he'll come across the line, Will Matthew will try to get himself into P3, P4. But his final sector lap time was so poor in the end, and it's a 140.2. So clearly, FRA have set their cars up for the dry in the hope that will help with their race pace. But Leopard goes even fastest with that 139.1, and usually a very quiet driver, but not so quiet with that pace, 5/10 faster.
Yeah, FRA Matthew with the fish-inspired helmet, but he's not taking to the water very well today. But obviously, I wouldn't, count him out just yet. But it does look like Fury Racing Association have gone with the hope that it will be a fully dry race. And LCR Leopard, probably the most experienced driver in all the field, showing his class at the moment. Obviously, Jam Pancakes as well as a driver that you've got to talk about when it comes to experience, and DSV Bobberts as well. But, 5/10 clear of the field at the moment for LCR Leopard. And I was watching VSR Smokey whilst you were commentating over Matthew's hot lap, putting himself into P2. Looked a very good lap from Smokey, don't get me wrong. But when you've got Leopard setting 139.1s, it really blows it out of water in comparison.
Keeping an eye out on Archie at the moment. Now, Bob, it's a big wiggle. He's just managed to catch it. Obviously, going for the setup that's more suited to Archie, probably the drier setup on this one. But what a performance. We've been really having sort of midfield team of the weeks, haven't we, the last sort of 4 weeks over these events. Last week you'd have, that's a complete corner cut here as Archie clearly just giving up on that particular lap. The team of the week, you'd have to say, last week would have been St. George Esports, but in the end it ended up falling, I think, on Velox's sort of head. RP1 led for Jeddah. It's clearly the midfield team of the week is CRT. I mean, they are absolutely flying with Bobberts at the moment in P4, beating PSR Connor, that's Oliver Loveland's favourite for pole, by just over 2/10, just under, 2/10. He's only within 0.03 of a second behind Jam Pancakes for St. George. So serious contenders are CRT at the moment, but Archie is just not able to find the pace he wants as he now comes into the pits in a very weird way indeed, and he'll be looking to try and set at least somewhat of a lap time in the last couple of minutes. NVR Lucas as well for Novus Racing, the sole Novus driver. They were hoping Rev Caterpillar might have been in there to potentially strap a set of softs on and take pole out of nowhere, but the conditions are certainly not suitable for that on this occasion, as Lucas is, to put it bluntly, not in a good place as regards of his internet health. He is lagging all over the place at the moment, and that may be putting Sam McCabe under a little bit of pressure at the moment. Pardon me, that is Jam Pancakes actually. He's on an outlap at the moment, but they'll want to stay well away, and it just gets off of the gas to stay well away from Lucas as a result.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Lucas doesn't look too bad in terms of connection front, but obviously you are the host of the session this evening, obviously after the return of the amazing early lights glitch for the host, which I believe promoted Bobberts up a considerable amount of positions last week's race. I believe he went from 10th to 3rd before the first corner, obviously. FRA Matthew, McCabe, Sam, and Jam Pancakes collision obviously helping him quite a bit, but obviously with a spectator hosting this evening, it will be quite nice that that won't occur unless you somehow get into a car and you decide to blitz the field. But
I'll try not to.
Yeah, I did see earlier on today that you were potentially making a comeback to League Racing.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Stay tuned on the Jota personal Twitter account, ladies and gentlemen. Lucas, I believe he's going to try and make something of these intermediate conditions. I believe his wheel does not function well in for wet, which is bizarre considering it'd probably be bone dry in his room right now, but obviously the conditions on track do not help him one bit. I believe when it turns into wet conditions, his force feedback actually has a loss, so I don't know what form of settings Lucas has it on, but very bizarre. But hopefully he will try and make something of this lap. Obviously, in the French Renault-powered Alpine car, he goes off track there on a nice little excursion. I'm not sure that would have lost him any time, that's for sure. Well, no, sorry, gained him any time. It's definitely lost him some time, that's for sure. But at least the car is still in a straight line and got all 4 wheels attached to it. I think that is the main thing for Lucas at the moment. Like, even if Archie does not set a lap as F-Ray Placky going into P3 there, might add F-Ray Matthew. I don't know if he has just come across to finish or start a lap. He has just come across to start a lap as F.A. Matthews, so keep an eye on him, ladies and gentlemen, because he could throw a curveball in there at the end of the session. But for Lucas at the moment, it is all about just keeping the car in a straight line and hoping that Archie will not be able to set a valid lap, and he does set off on his hot lap now, does the Continental Racing Team driver. But for Lucas, it will now just all be about not spinning out of the exit of the final corner.
Yeah, just keeping a very firm eye on what's happening for those that were just finishing laps. That Sam McCabe came across the line. And thanks for plugging my personal Twitter, by the way. That's never happened before. But Sam McCabe came across the line and ended up getting a really, really good second place. But then WR Smokey has just taken him down to the second row of the grid. Now, Jam Pancakes was on for an absolute cracker of a lap. But at turn 13, a track extended, and now he will be starting no higher than P5. And there are plenty of drivers around the field that are improving on this particular lap there, as Placky has just given a lovely tow to Matthew, who is not pushing the boundaries too hard, you'd have to say, is the McLaren, as we'll just keep an eye on the other Mercedes of Leopard, who comes across the line to take pole position for Shazoo, as VSR Shazoo are the two teams that we're keeping a very firm eye on the moment. Connor can only go P4, and that puts Sam McCabe in a really good position for St. George Sports. Placky comes into the pits. He's not going to be improving. Matthew has invalidated for FRA, so they're going 5-8. And Bobbets is looking to try and improve if he can. And he goes to the slightly further inside line, going through turn 12, 13, 14. And he will now go through turn 13 into turn 14, taking a lot of curve as well, is the Continental Racing driver, and he's going to want to try and get above Jam Pancakes if he can, get himself a position on the third row, which would be a cracking performance to say the least for Continental Racing. As he comes across the line now, he will stay in P7 in the end. Novus will not be improving as well with their 41-0. They'll be starting in 9th. The other CRT driver, Archie, did not set a lap. He'll start in 10th. So in the end, it was a conversation about the two sole drivers for VSR and for Shazoo. And in the end, LCR Leopard is the one who runs away with pole position. The German will be happy for that one in the German car for Mercedes.
Yeah, obviously the gap between VSR Smokey and LCR Leopard before Leopard set his pole time was 1 millisecond. You could literally put a piece of paper in between them. They were that close. But Leopard setting a quicker time, going 600 clear of VSR Smokey and claiming pole position.
Cracking pole position indeed as well, actually, for the Shazoo driver, and that will be pole position and the first for Shazoo, I believe, as well this season, with WR Smokey in second place for VSR, and VSR will be happy that they've got someone on the front row. Sam McCabe is in third for St. George, and they'll be hoping that a repeat of what happened at Britain will not occur. PSR only fourth place, only fourth place for the championship leaders. There's a 57-point gap between them and second place at the moment, so maybe potentially a damage limitation race here coming for the host team. FRA, their fastest driver was Plaque in the end in 5th place, with Matthew down in 8th. Jam Pancakes in 6th, with Bobbets in 7th for Continental Racing. Alpine and NVR for Lucas in 9th place. Archie did not set last time. He'll start in 10th. So we have a very few short moments to very quickly talk about the race. We are expecting, apparently, in the words that I hear in the background, it will be a dry race. FRA have got dry setups on. They're going to be rapid coming out of this. But tyre strategy is what it's going to be at, and it is not dry. It is pouring it down with rain.
Oh, God.
I don't know where I heard the weather was going to be dry. That is full wet conditions as far as I'm concerned. That is going to really mess up the strategy for those that were on the dry setup, and FRA, I think, are in trouble here.
Well, obviously there is the glitch at the moment. I know it's something that I have said previously tonight, but guess what, guys? There is another glitch within the game where Parc Fermé ceases to exist. So hopefully, we are leaving it to the drivers to hope that they won't, fiddle between their setups within for reasons that they can. Obviously, you can change the front wing height and your tyre pressures, I believe, under Parc Fermé. But without Parc Fermé on at the moment, you've got free reign to do whatever you want. Obviously, we are trusting for drivers as FRA. Matthew has just left the session. I will just quickly try and get him an invite there, but yeah, hopefully the drivers won't mess around too much and stick within, what they know.
Well, let's see what happens anyway. We've got a very intense French Grand Prix in the sopping wet conditions that is here in the Circuit Paul Ricard. We'll be back very shortly for this continued coverage of TPS, round number 4 of Season 2. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard then to this next round of TPS. This is the French Grand Prix for round number 4 of Season 2. Hope you're doing very well across the board here in the Circuit Paul Ricard. We have a very wet race ahead of us with 15 turns, 3.63 miles of track. That is absolutely sopping wet. No DRS will be available, but there are 2 available in case we do get the dry conditions to arrive. But with those 15 corners, we are expecting, regardless, the hotspot to be turn 8 and turn 9. So let's have a very quick roundup and a quick reminder of who the drivers are lining up, or the teams, sorry, are lining up tonight for as regards to the drivers. And the PSR will be racing tonight with Connor and Wexro. It's not been a good qualifying for them, so they will be starting in the midfield. It is Matthew and Plaque leading the way for Fury, but they are currently struggling with their strategy as well. Now, it was Tudy and Smokey, but Finn has come in last minute in replacement of Tudy, but RP1 will be fielding their usual lineup at their home Grand Prix. It is Teo and Montoya. And then St. George Esports, Sam McCabe and Jam Pancakes, as usual, will be lining up for that team with the likes of Team Artemis flying with Sasha Andre and Was WR Buck, who is now unfortunately unavailable. Novus Racing fielding Lucas and Rev Caterpillar, with those 2 drivers fielding quite well. Velox, on the other hand, were not qualifying very well. They will be racing with Sam and Jack. It will be Continental Racing Archie and Bobbers leading the way, followed of course then by Team Shazoo with Leopard and Venom Leopard on pole. It is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman. Thank you very much for being alongside me for this event. It is going to be a very interesting event ahead of us if this has got to go by. Qualifying suggested that we were going to be on for a very intense race, but that intensity going to be very damp out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you were saying at the end of qualifying that it would be interesting to see what the strategies would be if it was to be a dry race. Well, there's a mix-up on strategy tonight. In a wet race, we've got quite a few drivers on intermediate tyres and quite a few electing for the wets. It's an even split, it looks like, with 11 choosing for wets and 9 choosing for intermediates, to my quick mathematical knowledge, with FRA Plaque and FRA Matthew taking alternate strategies, Plaque being the highest person qualifying to go on to those intermediates. So it's going to be a really surprising race, I can't lie. From F1 2021, which was the last time I ever raced in a wet race, I would always choose the intermediates regardless of how wet it was at the start, because of how awkward the rain was. But I know they have tried to perfect the weather now where tyres do actually mean something, so it is a huge gamble from FRA Plaque, because he can either sink like a stone in water, or he can float and be a right danger like a prime shark waiting to catch his prey.
Well, whatever happens out there at the moment, I've just got a few people in the chat as well. If you are watching us repeat, we do race on a Thursday night from 7 o'clock. Please tune in and be part of this community and to enjoy races like this one, because this is going to be a really intense one. Comments in the chat suggesting the wets and the inters are about the same pace at the moment, so it is all about whether the rain stays as it is, because if that's the case, that crossover period is going to be very long, or is the conditions going to get worse, in which case the wets are going to be the way to go, or are the conditions going to get better, in which case the intermediates are going to go? We are going to watch that. The lead intermediate tyre is FRA Plackey, followed by Lucas. FRA are switching their strategy with an inter and a wet driver on that case, so it's going to be all about where they're going to be placing themselves later on in this race. The drivers are all getting themselves ready for this French Grand Prix. The last driver will be the home man himself in the Alpha Tauri, RP1 Teo. He will line up in P19 alongside the AEM driver Sasha Andre. They're lined up on the grid, and we're going to get going for this French Grand Prix. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go, the drivers. Here they are. It's a really good start on that inside line from LCR Leopard. Smokey's trying to put a pressure on, but look at PSR Connor fly down that inside line. He might want to make a double overtake, but Sam McCabe on the inside line as well. What a move from the St. George Esports driver. He's now up to second place, and we maybe be seeing some spinners towards the back, and we certainly have. Sasha Andre spins for AEM on his the only AEM driver out there at the moment. He's now down to P17 alongside CRT Archie. Leopard leads the way from Sam McCabe. It is Smokey from Connor. Jam Pancakes also up 1. Venom had an absolute flyer. He's up 6 positions for the Shazoo driver, up to P7, with Montoya up to 8th. And we've already got a 5-second penalty, for VSR Finn for corner cutting, gaining advantage and gaining a position.
Yeah, at the moment for intermediates, do not look it. It looks like the wet tyres are for perfect tyre. FRA Matthew being disqualified before the race even started, might I add. Obviously, I did mention that he did leave before the start of the race, and he wasn't in control of his car during the formation lap. FRA Matthew is out of this race already, and for intermediates are looking so slow. Sasha Andre going to overtake Rev Caterpillar here, and he's just going to have to carve through the field as quickly as possible, because for inters do not look it right now. He obviously got caught up in a collision at after turn 1. He had made up like eight positions, and obviously, we might be having a restart, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
Alexo has left the session.
We'd also like to see what's happening here. I'm not entirely sure myself,
is a restart.
And it is a restart by the looks of things, and I believe that may be related to the situation that we saw. Right at the start, we saw those red lights go out for myself, but everyone just stayed stationary. So I don't know whether we are going through a restart or not. I'm not seeing any information immediately. Apparently we are. So if that is the case, then we will be heading offline very briefly in the hope that eventually we can get a little bit of understanding of what's going on. Everyone asking what has happened to Matthew. We don't know why the FRA driver was disqualified, but I have a feeling that everyone is going to commit to that restart, and if that is the case, we will then obviously have a restart under those conditions, and well, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get a lobby reset up. So with that notice, everyone corner cutting, I believe the messages now start to being passed. We are going to get a restart underway as the virtual safety car comes out for this now dead lobby. We'll be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for the French Grand Prix, which we do hope we will get eventually a clean race without any glitches. See you in a bit. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome back to TPS. A few technical issues that led to us unfortunately needing to commit to this restart here at the French Grand Prix. This is round number 4 of Season 2 at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and we will be getting underway with what is going to be a very, very wet race indeed. It is 15 turns. There is 3.63 miles of track here with 2 DRS zones that apparently will be active towards the end of this race as dry conditions do come, and of course keep an eye on turns 8 and 9 throughout these 15 corners. That will be the hot spot for some racing. And a very, very quick reminder of who is going to be racing tonight. There has been a few changes in the interim. However, this is how it stands. PSR, Connor and Wextro, they are running for the championship leaders and the hosts of this tournament for PSR. FRA are running with Matthew and Placky. It's not been a good qualifying for them. They start in the midfield. Chudy and Smokey, it was meant to be Chudy for VSR, but it will be Finn racing for VSR tonight with Roleplayer 1 running with Teo and Montoya, their trusted lineup for their home Grand Prix. Sam McCabe and Jam Pancakes will be running for St George Esports tonight, and the trusted lineup obviously having to come back from a bit of an oopsie-daisy at the British Grand Prix. Sasha, Andre and WR Buck were racing for Artemis, but unfortunately WR Buck is unavailable. Lucas and Rev Caterpillar racing tonight for Novus Racing, and Velox Esports running with Sam and Jack after a poor qualifying in Q2. CRT, Archie and Bobberts, they are going to be the team to watch. Our CRT tonight, very good qualifying for the midfielders, and at the front LCR Leopard on pole position for this French Grand Prix with alongside Shazoo Venom, who was knocked out in Q2. It is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman. We are finally going to get underway for this French Grand Prix. It has been a very peculiar scenario that has led us to this restart. Obviously, we had a few people issuing problems, and we had actually the disqualification of one of the FRA drivers, but in the end all the teams decided we're going to get ahead with a restart, and it is still heavy rain out there tonight.
Yeah, good evening. We go again here at France Circuit Paul Ricard for this wet turn dry race. We do know that now. We do know what the weather is going to do now, which is quite nice. All drivers, funnily enough, electing for the wet tyres, it looks like, in terms of strategy, after some drivers on the first attempt taking the intermediate tyres. That not working very well, I must admit. But I think tonight, a wet to dry race, it has so many curveballs. Here, apologies, my voice nearly going there, but it has so many curveballs that a wet to dry race can provide us with, and with LCR Leopard on pole position, he'll be wanting to do the job for Team Shazoo tonight, but he'll be kept on his toes by McCabe, Sam and WR Smokey, and let's not discredit Pierce O'Connor, and I'm very scared because CRT Archie, he's got the intermediates on according to my screen. Archie, I don't know if you just saw the first start, but I don't advise.
I think he's just heard you. CRT Archie is now moving over to the wet tyre, and it looks like, though, one driver is electing to start on the intermediate. His fellow Sam. It looks to me as if he's electing to do that one here, as we've got people already leaving the session. I hope that is not the case for potential issues here. We'll see what happens as the drivers are lined up on the grid for this race ahead of us. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are, and I'm not entirely sure what's happened with FRA Matthew, but he's had a massive jump start and now leads the way from WR Smokey, who's had a cracking start around the outside line. He now leads the way, and then we've got Connor going around the outside, and I believe here we've got another restart coming, because everyone has just completely given up. I have no idea what is going on and why we've got all of the drivers all electing as we've just got the driver panning, the camera panning over to LCR Leopard. I have no idea what's going on, and I hope that we can keep in the loop about what is going on out there at the heart, but it is another restart. I'd like to understand what has caused this restart, because to me it didn't look like we had any issues going into this session, but we are going to be committing to another restart, and again we will have to disappear as a result of the issues that we face, unfortunately, with this game. Keep us in the loop, guys. I apologise that this is the entertainment you're receiving at the moment. It's not our fault. Just blame the Codemasters. Back in a few. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. We're back for this event in TPS. This is the French Grand Prix. Obviously, as you may have seen, we've had a few technical issues leading into this race at the Circuit Paul Ricard. However, fingers crossed, this lobby isn't going to break on us. We'll have to see what happens either way. For the fourth time now, this is a 15-turn track with 3.6 miles and 2 DRS zones that will be available towards the end of this race as we are starting under heavy wet conditions. And of course, keep an eye on turns 8 and 9. They're going to be the hot spots on this circuit. And let's have a very quick look again at the lineups that we've got coming up ahead of us in this race in TPS. It is going to be Paradox Sim Racing, the championship leaders with racing with Connor and Wexrow. They are not in a really big fight tonight after a poor qualifying. Matthew and Plackey also a little bit down the order as well for FRA. Visceral are racing with the likes of Smokey and not Judy. Finn having to come in last minute for their issues. But the team from France racing in the home Grand Prix are going to be racing with Montoya and Teo, the trusted pairing. The trusted pairing for St. George as well. Even with the mistake at the British Grand Prix, Sam McCabe and Jan McCabe races again tonight. Sasha Andre racing on his own tonight as WR Book is unavailable for Team Artemis. And then following on with Novus, Lucas and Rev Caterpillar racing for that team in the Alpines. VLX, Sam and Jack are racing for Velox tonight. They didn't have a very good qualifying themselves, but these guys did. CRT potentially in the mix for the midfield team of the race. They are certainly in the mix with Team Shazoo. LCR Leopard leading the way from pole position. It is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman, and it is only massive apologies around the field, isn't it, for what has been an unfortunate circumstance of technical issues across the board. Brett, I mean, you got to look at it from the driver's perspective here, haven't we? Now, you know, This is a perspective now. This is the third lobby that they've now come in. They have got to They've got to reset their mindset and try and get back into this race, and that is a difficult ask when things aren't quite adding up.
Yeah, obviously their mentalities, their mental strength will be in question tonight. I do have to admit, thank you for having me yet again on what has been a very interesting night on the technical side of things, but this is the final restart. We will be going no matter what tonight in the Paradox series. This is a test of wills, a test... as I said, a test of mental strength to see who can survive through the pressures of the restarts, of the drivers talking, maybe a few head games going on, trying to, just try and get into each other's heads. And hopefully this session will be smooth and seamless, and we can just enjoy a lovely night of racing, which was what qualifying provided us. The race thus far has not been kind to us, but now hopefully we will have foot to the floor and eyes to the lights very soon, and we will enjoy laps of racing action around the Circuit Paul Ricard.
Hopefully we will get that. Anyway, we do have a bunch of laps ahead of us that is going to be bringing some intense action. I've just got to put into your mindset here, Brett, so then you can keep as calm as possible. Yes. Everyone has elected now to start on the wet tyres. So even after the 3 races that we have been in order to get a race sorted, the drivers have all now decided after 2 attempts the intermediates are not the tyre to be on at the moment, and the wet conditions out there, as you can see, it's absolutely pouring it down at the moment in France. So these drivers are all going to have to now adapt and get everything set up. Now, FRA are going to be the team I'm going to be keeping an eye out on here, because it's pretty evident that their race strategy was to be on a drier setup, because they did not have a good qualifying at all. The rear was stepping out everywhere, which suggests to me, again, they were using a dry setup. If that is the case, and suddenly FRA are out of nowhere with pace, there is going to be the question of whether they're using the same setup that they used at the beginning of the lobby, and that is going to be across the board as well. I mean, I'm singling FRA out, that's going to be across the board. It's going to be a question of, are the drivers going to actually be fair and say, yeah, no, we definitely 100% definitely used the setup that we used to qualify with. Your AEM, I can't ask for your opinion, because your professional stance is all going to be, oh yes, no, we're definitely telling Sasha to use the same setup. But from a driver's perspective, you're going to be absolutely dying to put a wet setup on around here, surely.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Sasha, he did leave after he got knocked out in Q1 to go and do some wet race practice. I do know that much. I can exclusively reveal, I guess I can say, but then again, for the likes of Rev Caterpillar would have also done the same. Obviously, in terms of setups, you've got to stick to your guns and be faithful to yourself, be truthful to yourself in terms of what setup you used, because I think it is also a mental thing of, if you have changed your setup, are you going to feel as confident with it as you have done previously? Obviously, for drivers in the top 10 have had qualifyings 2 and 3 in intermediate conditions, not quite wet conditions, but they have found out what their setup is like in for rain, should they have chosen a dry setup. But tonight's race, it should provide a lot of entertainment as we look to the lights straight away in 3 seconds' time. So I'll pass it over to you.
I do hope that we're going to be in for a very interesting race indeed, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're not going to have any issues. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers here they are, and it is a better start this time from LCR Leopard on that inside line. Smokey is getting a little bit of a wiggle on, but as is Leopard as well on the second phase of that start. Sam McCabe not having the better start on this particular occasion, but he is going to go down the inside line of WR Smokey and put him under some significant pressure, and it is all about what's going to be now heading around this first sector as we've got positions gained left, right and centre, a couple lost. Jam Pancakes for St George Esports, unfortunately spinning out before we've even got going. He's down now at the back in 19th. As it stands though, the big gainers, Shazoo Venom, once again for Shazoo, up 5 positions and now up to 8th place. 4 positions gained, make that 3 for Sasha Andre for AEM as well. 6 positions gained for Venom, who's had an absolutely flyer at the moment as he now tries to challenge the likes of Plaque as he now goes down to the inside line. Boberts is now suddenly giving positions up left, right and centre here. I'm not sure what's going on here. Here comes NVR Lucas potentially down the inside line on Venom. Is he going to put some pressure on him? He chooses not to in the end as they go into turn 8 and turn 9. And again, a little bit of a wiggle on here as it looks like Archie is trying to get in the mix and he's struggling a little bit on the rear. Has been all the way through this race, but unfortunately all the way through this weekend as well. But he is still in a points position in 9th place and he's currently getting challenged at the moment by VSR Finn in 10th.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy racing action as cars going 2, maybe even 3 wide round turn 10 at the back of the grid between Sasha Rev Caterpillar and PSR Wexro, who's fell to last place unfortunately for the Paradox Sim Racing driver and owner, but it has been a good start for some as Alpine of NVR Lucas goes wide, he goes off track, and CRT Archie is side by side of him. Archie is weaving everywhere, trying to just get temperature into the tyres and to make sure that he doesn't spin for car around. Shazoo Venom, he and ESV Bobbits are going side by side. Venom trying to go around the outside of the final corner, gets ran out of road unfortunately, but he's got to keep it off track. He's going to come back on track now. LCR Leopard takes lap 1 into lead, but Shazoo Venom, he's going to have the inside line into turn 1, and will he dive down the inside of ESV Bobbits?
Oh, it's going to be close.
Looks like it's very close, but Bobbits, he'll have the inside line into that corner and he will keep P6 at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Venom was going to be going down that inside line in very treacherous conditions. It's no surprise that in the end he yielded and didn't really want to face too hard, but he nearly put himself under pressure from the Novus driver of Lucas, who himself is under some serious pressure from Archie at the moment. Archie really struggling out there at the moment. He's been struggling all race weekend, to be honest with you, despite the fact he gained the 1 position. Obviously, that would probably be from Jam Pancakes end up in this spin earlier on in this session here, as Rev Caterpillar relegated down to 18th place as he carries on battling with the Frenchman Teo for RP1 here. Here we're on board now with FRA Matthew and Montoya for RP1, as RP1 wants to make some inroads here. They go for the earlier breaker manoeuvre, hoping that maybe Matthew outbreaks himself, but in the end a very tidy little bit of racing actually there from the FRA driver as the engines are getting revved, and I am getting completely deafened at the moment, so apologies if I start shouting to try and hear myself think, never mind talk in that scenario. So Matthew then is still in 11th place at the moment. FRA not having the best race weekend so far, but they've got 5th place through Placky at the moment as he now pulls, well, I'd say it's a DRS gap, but of course it's not even going to matter at this point of the race anyway, to Boberts, who at the moment as well wanted to take some big points, and he will be taking some big points alongside Archie at the moment for Continental. They really need these points.
Yeah, at the moment, Fury Racing Association, obviously the closest rivals to Paradox Sim Racing at the moment, not doing the best at the moment. Obviously, PSR Wex are in last place for Paradox Sim Racing, but FRA Matthew practically pushing VSR Finn around that final corner. It looked like front ring to rear ring as WR in a box has just joined. There's
crispy.
been rumours as to who is behind these accounts, because I have seen them in many Xbox tournaments. They do provide some light-hearted humour, but obviously for the teams that are getting bantered, obviously not a nice look for them, unfortunately. But it does raise a question whether they're being engineers for another team, as NVR Lucas picks up a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting, and unfortunately I do have to say that is deserved, because he did stay off track to keep the position there from CRT Archie after breaking late into the break zone of turn 3, and Archie's just having a major wobble of the car at the moment. Efrain Matthew using the ERS, trying to get past VSL Finn as soon as possible. He'll want to be claiming back those 3 positions that he lost in the opening lap or 2, but he can't do so at the moment, as everyone is just stuck behind Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas is actually doing a valiant effort defending, to be fair, and despite the I'm going to have to find a way to block that at the bottom, to be honest with you, aren't I, at some point, let's be honest. As and a very nice camera angle there, and that's the guy of Archie getting a big tank slapper, and very well caught, but he is really trying to fight this car at the moment. We're in this sort of phase of the race now where everyone is now not going to focus about, you know, the immediate future. Now we're going to talk about the long-term gain here, and that is a completely different phase of the race for a lot of these drivers here, as we do have Archie going around the outside, then heading through, and again the wiggle on that Red Bull. The CRT driver is really pushing hard. Lucas then with the first guilty party of a 3-second penalty as a result of track extension. Really not what you want to see on the 4th lap of this race, as Leopard goes fastest and already pulling 2.5 seconds to Smokey at the moment. Shazoo are going to be very happy with their driver at the moment, leading the way and leading by example at the moment as well. And just want to take the opportunity as well. Big thank you to every single one of you tuning in, as well as the drivers as well, for their continued patience with the unfortunate situation that we are currently in at the moment, with the game not working at its best, to say the least. And now we've got bigger YouTubers now starting to step in and saying it's about time we have a completely different game engine to run the F1 franchise. We may be on the cusp of something a little bit better, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years, because I can't particularly stand commentating over events that need to be restarted twice or 3 times. I'm sure you're in the same position as well from a management perspective, Brett. We can only hope later down the line we're going to end up with a game where we can see racing like this, Archie and Lucas, without interruptions from outside sources.
Yeah, obviously that is one thing that we all want in life, and that's a working game, as VSL Finn and Efrain Matthew taking different ventures off track there. Matthew is going to have an inside line into turn 10 there.
Oh, crikey!
Obviously, yeah, side by side, proper battling between these two drivers, giving each other adequate racing room here. Will Finn be able to hold it round the outside? He'll turn into the inside line here for turn 13. He'll brake late, does for Visceral Racing car driver, and looks like he keeps the position as Sasha Andre 02 is gone very off track there, as well as VLX Jack picks up a 3-second time penalty for his troubles, and joins Lucas in the penalty category. But yeah, as you mentioned about obviously as a team manager, it's obviously frustrating when these situations occur, and I don't like it as much as the next person, because obviously most of the time I am doing commentary on races, and it is obviously frustrating when the restarts occur. We have to go back and forth with resetting grids, all that jazz that you just need doing for all these clerical errors, I guess you could say. But at the end of the day, we're all here because we have a passion for racing, and we've got 27 laps of it tonight, and I think we should just enjoy what we have been provided with these 19 excellent drivers on track.
Oof, I mean, I'm still getting deafened by the engines. I know that's purely an aesthetic thing, but like we could do with having my ears still at the moment. Here comes Archie then. He's trying to phase a battle here. Worth mentioning as well, by the way, really cracking racing between Finn and Matthew. It was absolutely wonderful to see that side-by-side action for so long in these very precarious conditions. And I'm talking about the precariousness of these conditions because that rain is now beginning to lighten up, and now this is where you'd say intermediate surely are the tyre to be on. But you'd probably expect here a bunch of the wet tyre runners may try and take this out to the dry tyres if they can. But if they do decide to go for a set of intermediate tyres, you'd expect they're going to be incredibly quick, to say the least. So it's all about strategy now. Do people try and make these wets last, or do they go to the intermediate tyre? Now, I'm not going to ask you the question, Brett, because, of course, you've got a driver out in the field at the moment, so obviously that strategy is going to be very much a confidential matter. However, from my perspective here, surely it is an opportunity for people to now come on to a set of intermediate tyres now and at least make up the pit stop that he would do here, as Matthew is trying to make inroads now on Finn. He's had enough staying behind him, but Finn has just firmly shut the door and said no, it's not happening on this particular occasion, as the McLaren stays in P11 at the moment. He is getting really close to getting that move for P10, but Finn is a valiant defensive effort so far from Ferrari and from VSR.
Yeah, we've seen Finn defending like an absolute professional in previous circumstances in WR Tier 1, defending against Otis Lawrence. Obviously, a very hard task, a very hard driver to keep behind you, but VSR Finn is just choosing every possible line at the moment that will keep him for position. As CRT Archie and MVR Lucas going side by side here. Will they give each other sufficient racing room? I'm not too sure there, as I see Lucas go a bit off track. Archie gets a position there, and he will benefit very nicely from there. Archie up into P8.
There wasn't a collision there, I don't think. I think it was more so that the Alpine tried to put the power down as early as he possibly could and maybe just snapped it a little bit as a result, and he's now relegated to P9 as the Novus driver. CRT now up to 6 and 8 respectively, as Archie has now started to really pick up the pace a little bit here, and I'm wondering with the drying conditions if he's starting to feel a little bit more confident with the Red Bull. But remember, these conditions are going to start falling off a cliff a little bit here for drivers on the wet tyres, but these two are still battling ding-dong here between Finn and Matthew. Now Matthew is going to go off of the circuit here, potentially a switchback opportunity to get the power down early, and he might have the opportunity potentially now going into turn potentially 14 into 15 here. Is he going to go for the lunge again, I wonder? Will the FRA driver, or is Finn going to catch him out? No, on this occasion he does hold the inside line, and again Finn is able to hold off from the attack from Matthew, as we do have drivers coming in, and Velox are the first drivers to snap, and I believe he's going to be coming in shortly for a set of intermediate tyres, which will probably go here now until around about lap 15 before the dry tyres become a thing. We'll have to see. Velox Sam now coming into the pits. He's Alfa Romeo pits right at the end, and it is a set now of intermediate tyres, and no doubt it's intermediate tyres here. We're seeing a lot of lockups come out for those on the wets. They are now overheating.
Yeah, was just going to mention now as Sam pulled into the pits, VSR Smokey, he had a spin going from P2 down to P7, and that's opened up an 8.2 second gap at the top for LCR Leopard. He is absolutely running away with it, is the Team Shazoo driver, and, you know, really showing his class at the moment. And, you know, we've talked about VSR Finn and FRA Matthew for P10 at the moment. Rev Caterpillar and RP1 Teo have put on an absolute masterclass in battling whilst they've been battling, as Finn gets past Matthew. Yet again, I believe Matthew just claimed P10 for a split second, but VSR Finn keeping P10 at the moment. Velox Sam taking the bye onto the intermediate tyres, and I think that will be a risk that will pay off for him, in my personal opinion, as it's the Bobbert and Shazoo Venom are going side by side. It's Red Bull versus Mercedes, getting shades of 2021. Venom tried to get a form of switch back there, but Bobbert's parked his car, I want to say perfectly there. Shades of Lance Stroll versus Sebastian Vettel for last corner for last lap in 2022, as a lot of drivers are coming into the pits now. It is time for the intermediate drivers, believe, and LCR Leopard stays out as well as his teammate. It is a Shazoo 1-2 at the moment, so the team that didn't qualify for the Paradox Series came P11, but obviously after the dropout of World Online Racing Esports, got promoted into the Paradox Series. It's a Team Shazoo 1-2.
Yeah, so be happy with this one with the 11th place team at the moment. 11th place, what 11th place will Shazoo be saying at the moment with a 1-2 as it stands? The Leopard has got options at the moment, because he could theoretically, if he wants to, try and take these wet tyres now to the dry spell, assuming the dry spell comes quickly, because the weather conditions have been set to heavy rain, overcast, and then light clouds. So this rain will come to an end quite quickly into overcast conditions. It's just whether there's going to be enough light and enough heat on there to get the dry line on there quick enough that the dry tyre would be at least going from a wet to a dry would be quicker than doing the 2-stop and going to an intermediate in the intermediary in that scenario. Either way, it is Sam McCabe leading the way for St. George of those on the intermediate tyres, but he is facing a vast challenge here from PSR Connor. PSR, by the way, absolutely shocking race so far. Wextro down in 18th place at the moment. A couple of spins, I believe, on the opening laps, or at least some half spins from Wextro, has now put PSR under a little bit of pressure here. But their pressure would be from FRA, and they're not having a good race either. So there's a real opportunity here for the midfield team. So if you're a midfield team runner, liking the midfield teams that only have got 200-300 followers maybe, this is the race to watch, especially for those maybe in Novus, in RP1, and St. George Esports definitely. The only team at the moment that you would consider up there, you know, the teams that are well established, is Shazoo, and as it stands at the moment, Venom has come in for Shazoo. Leopard has stayed out another lap. I am wondering now if this wet to dry strategy is something on the eyes and ears at the moment of Shazoo with Leopard.
Yeah, at the moment, I believe that is the route that LCR Leopard has chosen to take. We will go to the gap to the leader. It's 31.4 second gap between LCR Leopard and McCabe Sam. I'm just going to do some sector comparisons. So a 31.6 and a 46.6 for McCabe Sam on those inters, and for LCR Leopard a 31.8 and a 47.1 on his wet tyre. So for intermediates, you know, McCabe Sam had to warm them up as well. They are much quicker than for wet tyres that LCR Leopard is on, and maybe they could close up a pit stop gap potentially, but you would really have to put the floor down if you are McCabe Sam. But obviously one of the pressures that the wet does bring, it's so sensitive to put your foot down. There's Sasha Andre there, just watching him, he's drifting round a few of the corners here, showing off some rallying skills there. Is the Team Artemis driver trying to chase down Volok Sam, but at the moment I believe McCabe Sam has chosen for better strategy, but that 8.2 second gap that he had to LCR Leopard before the pit stop could prove to be crucial when it comes to the switch over to the dry compounded tyres.
2 seconds a sector at the moment if you want live timings at the moment, because Sam McCabe was about 5 seconds back on Teo. Make that 3 seconds in the second sector, and as they go through the third sector, that might be reduced to about 2.5. Of course, not so much true here because these are high speed corners, but these slow speed corners and medium speed corners is where you will see the intermediate tyres seriously become a member of their own essentially, and within just the one corner, half a second for Sam McCabe versus Teo at the moment. Currently as it stands as well, worth just having a very quick look as what's happening as regards the tyre temperatures, and I've been keeping a very firm eye on tyre temperatures to see are the wet tyre runners currently managing their tyres effectively at the moment, and the answer to that one effectively is no. As it stands at the moment, Teo's temperatures are up into the mid to up 80s as it stands at the moment, which you may feel it's not too bad, but on a wet tyre, the Centerato tyres that Pirelli provide, the operating window on an inter and a wet is so much lower. 80 to 85, maybe approaching 90 is far too hot, and these drivers are struggling to find puddles to cool the tyres down in, and the intermediate tyre runners are absolutely loving it. Within the space of just one sector alone, McCabe has found another half a second here, and Leopard staying out alongside Finn and Teo, obviously wanting to go on that inverse wet to dry strategy as opposed to having the intermediate tyre, is a bold call for the likes of Finn and Teo. Has Leopard got enough of a gap? I argue, unless he comes now, which is exactly what he's done, he would have been in serious trouble.
Yeah, I was just trying to look through the pixels. Obviously, I don't have the eyesight that you have, obviously, as to check the tyre temperatures of the intermediate runners, but it looked like McCabe Sam was running at around high 60s, low 70 degrees Celsius on the tyre temperatures. But LCR Leopard choosing to pit now. RP1 Teo choosing not to. Same as VSR Finn. I wonder if LCR Leopard has got a suitable gap, a whole pit stop worth of a gap, to stay ahead of Finn, and it looks like he does actually. So that shows the impressive pace of LCR Leopard, and he's still ahead of McCabe Sam, but that gap has shrank from 8.2 to about 5.7.
It was a fair call from Shizou, to be fair. To be, in fairness, what have they got to lose in just pitting him now? At the end of it, he's going to be on a better tyre and he stays in first. It makes so much sense. And obviously in doing so, oh, what a move here from Sam McCabe. Getting on the power super early to try and catch Teo napping, and exactly that is worked a treat. Here comes PSR Connor down that inside as well, and the wet tyre runners are essentially having to drift around corners at the moment, as Teo definitely does drift around a corner and spins entirely, going through into turns number 7, and that is certainly RP1 strategy now out of the window. He has to pit for intermediate tyres. Finn is working his hardest here to try and get to the dry spell, but the rain is still falling and the dry tyres are not going to be coming at least for another 6 or 7 laps. Really bold call to try and make it last, but I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Teo there in Roleplay 1's home Grand Prix, going something bold with the strategy, but it just has not worked out for him. This off Finn, he is coming through the 3rd section now, so it'll be interesting to see as Teo does pick up a 3-second time penalty to add to this absolutely woeful lap 11 for him. It'll be interesting to see if this off Finn does choose to veer right into the pit lane. We will have a look. Nope, he is staying out another lap.
Silly.
It's Finn.
It's silly, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does seem to be, because McCabe Sam, PSR Connor, FRA Placky, they are just going to be there like a hawk, and they're going to profit so much from just being there, being right behind Finn. But at the same time, if they don't overtake Finn every corner, LCR Leopard is just going to be licking his lips, because that 8.2 second gap that went down to 5.7, well, it's gone back up to 7.5 as McCabe Sam tries to do what he did to Teo, diving it down the inside. PSR Connor, he's just going to do what he did to Teo as well and follow him through. So McCabe Sam and PSR Connor sort of being helping each other out somewhat, as PSR Finn is getting swamped by Placky.
There's some racing happening as well, between Shizou, Venom and Smokey at the moment in this little battle. Smokey elects not to go for that little attack there. Finn, in fairness to him, has tried to make a valiant effort of this, but unfortunately he's racing with people that are just going to be far too quick. And I was really concerned here, especially going through turns 6 and 7, that with the slow-moving Ferrari, people were going to get caught out, and Venom has been caught out. He's got a time penalty for track extending for avoiding collisions, and I think certainly Shizou are going to be on the blower to say, can we get that removed at the end of this race here? Finn leaves the space, in fairness to him, and I've got no doubt he's going to leave plenty of space to his teammate who breaks very early to let Smokey through. So Finn now relegated to P8. He's got to come in surely for a set of intermediate tyres now and try and get them as late as he can, and I hope that the dry spell doesn't come until later on in this race, maybe around about lap 24, maybe. And in that case, he'll want to try and take the intermediates as late as he can. So LCR Leopard comes across the line to set the fastest lap of this race so far, but we've got a long train of cars from 2nd all the way down to 7th place at the moment, as Finn, for some reason, elected to stay out again in the hope that the wet tyres will go the distance. But I fear punctures may be now becoming a serious concern, especially when the tyre temperatures, in fairness, to be fair to Finn, he's managed to hold the temperatures quite well. They're still in the sort of low 80s to the high 70s at the moment, but the tyre wear is a serious problem at the moment. He's got 41% wear, so 59% tyre wear at the moment on VSR Finn's tyres, that they are going to fall off a cliff imminently with the track conditions. Would you believe, though, Brett, we've managed to finally get halfway through a race. With the crossing of the line for lap number 14 for Leopard, we'll be halfway into this race here, and anyone could be on the podium from 2nd down to 7th as it stands.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether Shizou Venom would be, but would depend on other drivers picking up time penalties, and with 14 laps of racing, 13 potentially, if providing that there is no safety cars or virtual safety cars to harm any strategies. It looks, I don't want to say it's, the race is over, but LCR Leopard is proving his class for Team Shizou at the moment in for wet conditions, and I really hope that I haven't put a commentator's curse on Leopard, because I know I did on Wextra a little bit, but there we go, he's setting fastest laps here, there and everywhere now is the Team Shizou driver, as VSR Finn choosing to stay out yet again for another lap. So he really is trying to go to the dries, and he is starting for Ferrari Express, for Visceral Racing Express. I mean, this does help out his teammate Smokey so much. It also helps out Shazoo Venom, that the fact that he'll only be overtaken by one car when it comes to his time penalty being applied at the end of the race, should the race be stopped and finished now. But we're not going to stop, because we've got action here, there and everywhere, as CRT Archie looks to go down the inside of VSR Finn, which will become the outside, back to the inside.
Oh, that's bold.
Finn is trying to fight it. FRA Matthew trying to go round the outside there. Will he leave adequate racing room to Visceral Driver? There is contact there between the front left and rear right of Finn. He's going to fall so many positions as MDR Lucas looked to go off track there to try gain some more speed and try to potentially avoid a collision there. But FRA Matthew and RP1 Montoya.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is very close. Matthew going to go down the inside. Turns into the outside, back into the inside. FRA Matthew looks to get the position, but RP1 Montoya, he is going to continue to fight this. But FRA Matthew is now a full car length ahead. MVR Lucas now ahead of VSR Finn.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why, after all of that was happening, the reason why now Finn has just decided, you know what, I'm just going to take these as long as I can, is because I think he's going to be coming in for dries this lap. Because the rain has now stopped. The sun is starting to come out. The dry line is quite prominent, and I'm expecting he's going to be strapping on a set of softs here. But the intermediates do seem to be the tyres of the moment as it stands. But I think Finn is going to make the call to come in for dries here. So we'll see what the VSR driver does, because he's losing too much time now versus the rest of the field. And he stays out again on a set of intermediates. I just don't see why, because Jam Pancakes is going to get the move done in only 2 corners. He was maybe 1.5 seconds down. He's now in front of him. He really should have come in for dries and just gambled on it now, because there's no other opportunity to find any time on these tyres. He's going to fall all the way potentially as far back as Velox, I think, by the time he comes into the pits. He may even fall further than that. In fact, speaking of Velox, Jack's coming in from 18th, and I suspect he's now going to gamble for a set of dries, and he is. It's medium tyres going on for Jack now, so the dry tyres now starting to go on. People started to make their gambles, and of course, as soon as we see that race control message to say the DRS is enabled, is when we start to see drivers now break out of this current train. And though we will have a bit of a DRS train maybe for those from Placky down, Connor is going to want to try and battle with Sam McCabe here, because PSR and FRA are on a bit of a damage control here. Certainly FRA are in a better position with Matthew in 9th, but he's going to want to make some inroads here to try and make a big dent out in the standings versus PSR.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I would say that track is drying up very quickly, I must admit. So I believe cars should elect to come in for the dry tyres. As LCR Leopard, he's coming in for the dries, ladies and gentlemen. Whether McCabe Sam will follow him, I believe every car should be following at the moment. Maybe VLX Jack should potentially be gaining some positions here. A lot of drivers... Oh, hold on, they're going side by side into pit lane! Oh my God! FRA Placky and Pitsar Connor going side by side into the pit lane. I want to know what mentality was on there, because you should not be going too wide into a pit lane. It's not safe for racing. I know you're trying to be opportunistic, but oh my goodness, that could have ended catastrophically. And PSR Connor gets out ahead of FRA Placky, and yeah, but that could have just ended in disaster. But everyone electing for the medium tyres. FRA Matthew is the only driver to stay out, and he will regret that, I believe, because LCR Leopard, he's right behind him, and he smells blood, and that blood is McLaren Papaya Orange.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm just looking at it at the moment. He's actually still pulling away from corners at the moment, actually, is the McLaren. Now, obviously, DRS is now enabled, and the track is bone dry, maybe with a few damp spots actually out there, speaking of which. As Jacob in the chat saying, oh, you daft blood dries for Velox Jack. But he came in one lap earlier, took the gamble, and actually he might be earning quite a keep from that at the moment. We'll see where he is at the moment. He's up in 15th, so he has gained a few positions as a result of that one, as Leopard is staying behind Matthew. Matthew, no doubt, is going to be coming into the pits here to get off of those intermediate tyres. It makes no sense to be on them. And as VSR Finn's wet to dry strategy has worked an absolute treat, as he falls from all the way in the depths of P2, P3 to P18 as a result of that one. Either way, Leopard does make the overtake on Matthew. He's just far too slow on these dry tyres, the intermediate tyres the moment, as he will definitely be coming in to get off of these tyres. And there he goes into the pit lane. Will the McLaren go, as FRA Placky will take P4 off of the hands of Matthew as and when he comes around the corner. So FRA definitely in the better position. FRA Matthew, though, may have compromised the race of FRA somewhat by staying out one lap later than everyone else. We'll see what the damage is as the McLaren does leave his pit box on a set of medium tyres now to the end of this race, as of course now we're not going to know who's going to get the fastest lap of this race, because of course the track is only going to get better and better as this race goes on. As it stands at the moment, though, LCR Leopard certainly leading the way, but he's been losing a little bit of time approaching later into this lap at the moment. He's actually now below 10 seconds versus McCabe, who's started to get a little bit of a push on already as the St. George Esports driver, and is actually pulling away quite nicely from PSR Connor, though Connor will have DRS on this particular lap as they head down the straight going into turn 8, turn 9.
Yeah, at the moment it is looking to be that battle for P2 and P3 for final steps on for podium. 9.8 seconds for gap to LCR Leopard at the moment. So PSR Connor, he will be getting afterburners on as if he Bottas in P7 picks up a 3-second time penalty now for Continental Racing Team. 6 drivers now with time penalties to their name, and they will surely drop quite considerably down the field. Well, Bottas maybe not, because he has a 9.3 second gap to RP11 Montoya at the moment, make it 9.4 as we go round Sector 2 and Sector 3 of the Circuit Paul Ricard. At the moment, it just seems to be drivers just trying to get used to the dry. Maybe some of them elected for wet setups at the start of the race, and now this is the stage where it's really not going to feel nice for them. We talked about FRA at the start of this race, what feels like about an hour and a bit ago, about them potentially having dry setups on for this race, and them, they'll be able to flourish in these situations should they have chosen a dry setup for this race, because obviously they showed very good pace in qualifying one when it was dry. Now it's dry again here at France, and we're ready to see 9 laps of racing action to the finish.
So Sam McCabe at the moment, Sam McCabe, however you want to say it, for St. George Esports, 2-lap-old medium tyres. He's gaining rapidly at the moment on LCR Leopard at a rate of about 3.5 tenths a lap, and that's irrespective of the fastest lap. You can avoid the conversation about that for the time being, because this track is still getting better and better, obviously after that rainy period. As it stands, though, must admit, Sam McCabe is starting to get a big bucket of time on Leopard, but the issue is that his ERS management, as typical unfortunately with the St. George Esports driver, has been poor, and he's now well below 10% ERS on these straights, which is only going to cost him in the race against PSR Connor, Placky, Venom, Smokey and Bobbets, who I've got no doubt are just managing their own races at the moment. When we get onto the straights of the DRS zone, especially going into turn 8, turn 9, Sam may end up being a bit of a sitting duck here, so it's all about if he can break the DRS territory again of Connor on the corners, and if he does, he's definitely going to be in the better position later down the line. But it's all about that position at the moment, and especially if Connor keeps fighting potentially with Placky. But as it stands at the moment, he's not in a fight with Placky. He's actually more looking like he wants to try and get in a battle with Sam McCabe here. But McCabe Sam is currently struggling with DRS management, as is the Williams at the moment. Connor is trying to push hard here, but I have a sneaking suspicion he might be in a bit of bother, actually, Will the Welshman. Placky also struggling with the ERS as well, but Venom for Shazoo. Plenty of electrical juice available in that Mercedes power unit in 5th place at the moment.
Yeah, ERS seems to be a struggle for quite a few drivers, dipping below 20%. 13th, 14th / Andre 02. Oh God, he's got off track. And that's probably the worst time to cut to the Team Artemis driver as he falls from 13th down to 18th. But yeah, for electrical energy for these drivers is quite scarce at the moment. And now France isn't a circuit where you can regain ERS that well. So if you can retain it well, you're definitely in with a shout with making some inroads in the last few laps in the later stages of the race. But 1/10 is the gap between PSR Connor and Sam McCabe. McCabe Sam, he is under pressure by Queen and David Bowie, but he is at the moment. There's a red caterpillar causing yellow flag in sector 2. He's had enough. But PSR Connor, he is keeping the WR Tier 1 driver of McCabe Sam, the experienced Haas St. George's Esports driver, He's keeping him in check, and this won't be an easy ride for McCabe Sam in the final few laps.
Keeping an eye out then on that little battle that's happening with PSR Connor as he's getting closer and closer to making the overtake on McCabe Sam at the moment, who's trying to get and continue on with what has been, apart from the British Grand Prix to be fair, where there was a bit of a tiff going before into turn 1 as Rev Caterpillar actually leaves the session. Hopefully we can get him back in the lobby. PSR Connor is going to try his hardest to get a battle and a battle completed, if you will, with McCabe Sam. But McCabe Sam is a valiant driver who is not going to fight that should we say, too easy with the likes of Connor. And again, no overtake being used, just using DRS to get closer, but no opportunity for an overtake on this particular occasion unless he goes for the dive, which as you can see he chooses not to, and the train continues. In the chat at the moment, Ryan Jacobs popping in the chat, good evening to yourself. What a driver Wexfro is, he says, obviously in a joke with the likes of PSR Wexfro down in 15th place at the moment. As we've got yellow flags waved, I believe it's for one of your drivers. I think Brett Sasha spins for the second time here, and I can already see the clips bubbling as your commentary is interrupted by the spinning of your driver, with just words to the effect of Brett's soul leaves body as manager commentating sees driver spin or whilst he speaks. It's not going to be the nicest clips to see. Either way, as it stands at the moment, Sam McCabe still runs the riot at the moment of this front team of 7 drivers who are all trying to battle hard to try and take a podium at the moment. I think Sam McCabe is still in serious bother here with the issue Ray ERS management, because it is not going to be the fight about PSR and FRA. I think it potentially could be Shazoo here, with Venom monitoring his ERS and keeping it steady here. If he gets 3 overtakes done, it's going to be a Shazoo 1-2 out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it does heavily rely on the Shazoo 1-2, with every driver picking up penalties here, there and everywhere, and quickly. I just want to point out NVR Lucas, when battling with F Matthew, 9 seconds of time penalties to his name at the moment is for Novus Racing driver. He will drop like a stone at the end of a race if there was to be a late safety car in action. But at the moment, it's very close. Like, it's so good to see this style of racing where it's fair, it's clean, and hopefully I haven't just jinxed the whole of the grid there and there, starting to get elbows out here, there and everywhere. But Jam Pancakes and NVR Lucas switching positions there. Keep it respectful, please, gentlemen. Jam Pancakes gets the position, as don't know whether FRA Matthews just had an off there, because Jam Pancakes is going to go look and go round the outside at turn 10. What a manoeuvre from Jam Pancakes 44, the St George's Esports driver. An absolutely sensational move from the Englishman. He's into the top 10.
Yeah, Matthew will not be particularly happy. He got caught napping a little bit there, actually, in that little battle. And in the end, the St George Esports driver very happy. And he'll also take a warning as well with Matthew for track extension through into turn number 14. Oh my goodness me, he's getting very close, actually, is Matthew, as he's wanted to try and see revenge, if he can, in that little battle. Whilst that's all happening, by the way, people in the chat having a look at the moment as people are discussing that fastest lap that's just come through from Rev Caterpillar, who has had an astonishing 14.1 second lap time, which has instantly been deleted by the game as Sam goes fastest with that 1:33, as the track is probably now starting to get at its best. All about now whether the drivers have been able to look after their ERS, their tyres and their cars in respect to damage as well, as we keep an eye out and see on what's happening all around the field here, as we've got 5 laps to go in this race upon Leopard coming across the line, as he still leads this race by well over 10 seconds at the moment. I'm still not convinced Sam McCabe has got second place in the bag at the moment. That ERS management may end up being his fault, but Venom, his fault will be his track extension issues with that 3-second penalty, and others also holding their own at the moment. He could end up falling down a stone, as unfortunately it looks like AEM's driver Sasha has spun again going through turn 6.
Yep, obviously unfortunate for Sasha today, but I think a break quick will be good for Team Artemis, just to get the heads down, maybe have a few roster changes, just sneakily hinting at that. And hopefully when we come back we'll be able to do with 2 drivers instead of for 1, which would be a delight for us, a rare luxury. But at the moment I am just going to go and look in terms of warnings. McCabe Sam, he currently has 1 warning. That was picked up on lap 2, so it could have been a contact warning, or it could have been a track extension. PSR Connor only on 1 warning as well. FRA Placky, he is on 2 warnings at the moment, so he is 1 warning away from a track limits penalty should both of those be corresponding towards track limit extensions. Yeah, Jam Pancakes and CRT Archie. Jam Pancakes, he's been cutting through the field like a knife through hot butter. FRA Matthews going to look to capitalise as well. Yeah,
Matthew is very aggressive actually in those braking zones. He's I still don't think he's happy with Jam Pancakes making that overtake, but Jam Pancakes has made a catastrophic mistake, got a tank slapper, well caught, but it's the momentum is falling well within line of FRA Matthew, surely is going to get this move done. 4% ERS left as he still puts it into overtake, but here comes CRT Archie as well, also trying to defend from NVR Lucas with that 9 seconds with the penalties as they get into a collision going in there, and he resets onto track as well, which you cannot do around that corner. You're going to catch a load of people napping, and thankfully no one is going to get caught out as a result of that one, but it was a very late braking move, and I think Novus are going to be having words with Lucas at the end of that one, because 9 seconds worth of penalties, he has every right to race on track regardless of the time penalties, but there is a gentlemanly rule out there really. You don't go for dives for race positions that you're not necessarily going to keep, and I think Lucas might be in for a little bit of a rollicking from the team maybe after that one, as Archie, who was on for some really good points here for Continental Racing, who really need them at this point in the season as well, is down to 14th place. It's all about Bobberts and what he can finish with that 3-second time penalty, though thankfully his nearest rival Montoya is 11 seconds behind him. Jam Pancake still trying to fight with Matthew, by the way, as Matthew now promotes himself right back up to 9th place after that move going into turn 8, turn 9, as another 3-second time penalty falling in the way of Teo, by the way, another person with 9 seconds worth of penalties. PSR Connor, by the way, still in a battle at the moment as he overtakes, trying to try and get closer and closer if he can to Sam McCabe, and he is getting still within about half a second at the moment, so it is getting really close in that battle here. I'm still not convinced Sam McCabe has got P2 in the bag.
Yeah, at the moment, someone that profited from that situation is referenced by Troy in the YouTube chat. PSR Wexford, he'll just make up a couple of positions there for the LOX drivers of Sam and Jack. They've sort of been together all race, have Sam and Jack, and they've worked together as a cohesive unit, and they might become a roadblock to PSR Wexford here, who will be looking to make some inroads after getting eliminated in Q1. Did the PSR owner, but he will be looking to bounce back, and he will be looking to make some positions and potentially be on the cards for a top 10 finish tonight in the Paradox Series. We've got 2 and a bit laps of racing left as LCR Leopard had crossed the line to start lap 25, as the gap from the train from 2nd to 7th have all started. It's lap 25 as well, showing just how unbelievable the gaps are at the moment. But we do have 2 and a bit laps of racing left. FRA Matthew picking up the pace with the fastest lap. He will look to clear 3 seconds of Jam Pancakes, but with 2 and a bit laps remaining, I don't think that is possible. But we have seen Matthew's pace before. He is a very quick driver, to be fair to him, but 3 seconds does seem a bit of a hefty task for the Fury Racing Association driver. For Sam McCabe at the moment, he's still on a valiant effort to try and defend from Connor towards the front here. Of course, they've got that midfield battling happening at the moment. It's between the likes of Matthew and Pancakes. At the moment, Pancakes starting to lose a bit of time now versus Matthew getting that fastest lap of the race so far. So go back on board with Connor. The Williams driver racing for PSR is hoping to continue on with some good form for PSR, who have not had a good race in the slightest, have the host nation. But however, Paradox is going to be quite happy with the performance of their driver currently on the podium, but he is going to be having to defend from, would you believe, the team that are trying to fight them in the championship in FRA at the moment, and they've been hammer and tongue throughout this race. As we start the 26th lap here, these drivers are all going to be trying their hardest here to keep on with the pressure, and I'm expecting a mistake or two, as we have one right there. Venom has got himself into some serious trouble. Track extension, maybe a collision, and 3 seconds worth of penalties now been added to his name to make that 6. It's going to see Shazoo Venom fall well down the standings in what has been actually a well-managed race from Shazoo. Those time penalties have come to haunt them badly. Here comes Smokey, may also want to look for the mix as well. 5-second penalty for corner cutting as well, and gaining a place for Venom. I think he's probably going to want to try and get that one removed, because I didn't really see him gain a position off of the track there. I believe he got the position on Smokey by going off track, unfortunately for him. So I believe that would probably get reported by Visceral for the penalty to stand, unfortunately, for the Shizou driver, who, apart from his track extensions today, has had no faults about him, really. WR Smokey picks up a 3-second time penalty there for Visceral Racing as two drivers, I don't know whether they've pulled into a pits for a fastest lap attempt in MVR Lucas and RP1 Teo. Obviously, they've got 9 seconds of penalties and were going to fall anyway, but we might have a fastest lap battle to finish off the Grand Prix, which will be interesting to see. PSR, Wexler and VLX Jack, however, going side by side. Can Jack keep in position? Wexler goes off track. Will CRT Archie capitalise? No, he doesn't, but he is so close to the Williams of PSR Wexler. Can he make a move? No, he can't. It's a free-car train from Jack, from Wexler, from Charlie. Will Wexler go down the inside? Wexler looks to the inside. Archie has the outside line. Wexler has the inside line. Down for sweeping right-hander. And PSR Wexler gets the position. But VLX Jack, he will have the inside line here into turn 13. And PSR Wexler taking the curve there. VLX Jack still got position. This is an absolute ding-dong of a battle into turn 14, now into turn 15. But they are suffering from concertina effects. VLX Jack keeps the position on PSR Wexler, but watch that DRS, because we are on the final lap now, ladies and gentlemen, and PSR Wexler is 3 tenths behind with DRS. VLX Jack does not have DRS, but we will go on board with where are the battles at the moment. McCabe Sam, you were having doubts as to whether he would keep P2. 6 tenths gap. I believe he has this in the bag now, Jossa. The CRT Archie picks up a 3-second time penalty, and I believe this could be a podium for Paradox Sim Racing Connor. Not for P2 that he probably thought he could have got, but this is the best he can probably do now with 6% of ERS. McCabe Sam bouncing back from his terrible stint at his home race at the Great British Grand Prix, as LCR Leopard comes through Sector 3 now, comes up to turn 14, does for Team Shizou driver into turn 15 now, and it has been dominant from start to finish. He went on to the inters late, he went on to dries at the perfect time. Shizou are on for top step, and it's LCR Leopard who wins the French Grand Prix in the Paradox Series. McCabe Sam, he looks to come home in P2 using that ERS. It's a podium for St George's Esports as PSR Connor takes the third step of the podium. FRA Placky into P4, WR Smokey in P5, ESV Bobbits in P6, and will Venom fall any further positions to Montoya? He looks to keep P7. He does keep P7. Does for Shizou driver. It's a 1-7 for Team Shizou this evening, and I believe they will take that very much.
They may do indeed. Either way, Velox Jack is going to come across the line to take P11 with Sam's 3-second penalty. Wexro will finish in 12th place in the end, and Sam only finishing 0.006 seconds behind Wexro as well. Bitterly disappointing stuff for Velox in the end with an 11.13. PSR Wexro will be a little bit mediocre, to say the least, with his mood after that one, as Rev Caterpillar comes across the line to finish in 16th place. Sasha for AEM will finish in 17th place, and of course the two drivers with 9 seconds worth of penalties apiece, Lucas and Teo, will finish this race as Lucas sets the fastest lap at this race from 18th place, but of course that fastest lap point won't go to him, being all the way down in 18th place. And then here comes Teo at his home debut. It's not been the race that Teo really wanted. It's been a poor qualifying and a poor race for the Frenchman here in Circuit Paul Ricard. So that is the end of this French Grand Prix. Finally, after 3 attempts, we have managed to get a Grand Prix in there. Big thank you to every single one of you who have stayed with us throughout the issues as Venom gets driver of the day. No doubt, fantastic performance from him. Fantastic performance from yourselves and the drivers out there to continue on with the various issues that have occurred as a result of things outside of our control. You know, I'm not going to go on another rant. I'm not going to go on a George Morgan rant about this game, because what's the point? It don't matter what we say, it's not going to change it. Either way, we'll go to the podium and we will celebrate what has been a monumental victory, to say the least, from Shizou Leopard. He has absolutely flown from start to finish as the former LCR driver. He will be happy to take the top step of the podium here in France tonight. And of course, Shizou will be very happy to take some juicy points as well that they will need in the standings. Currently down in the midfield, of course, starting later after WR Esports' demise from this league. That's with the podium ceremony all done and dusted. Why don't we have a very quick check then at the very, 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 very provisional standings here in France tonight. LCR Leopard in the end finishing on the top step with Sam McCabe for St George Esports in second place, with PSR Connor rounding out the top three. Blackie in fourth with Smokey in fifth. Bobberts finishes in sixth place with Venom in seventh. Montoya manages finally to get into the points at his home Grand Prix for eighth, with Pancakes in ninth and Matthew rounding out the top 10. Jack finishes in 11th with Rexo in 12th. Sam in 13th. Archie in 14th with Finn in 15th place. Rev Caterpillar in 16th, all the way down the field as well. It's not been a good race from him as his form continues to drop ever so slowly. And then we've got Sasha Andre in 17th. A couple of spins for him. Wasn't very good for AEM and the Soul Driver as well. NVR Lucas in 18th with Teo, rounding out all of the drivers who all finished as well. No DNFs in that race despite all of the issues. That is it for this race in France. We are on a week break next week. Of course, with that week break, it allows all the drivers to reset. The drivers will get the opportunity to get themselves fresh and ready in 2 weeks' time for the race in Monza in Italy. Can't wait for that one. Oh, pardon me, it's Belgium actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Yeah,
You know what? I'm in need of the break as well, aren't I? It's Belgium, not Monza. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at Spa-de-Francorchamps. Bye for now.
Au revoir.
Thank you.